Your cat was sitting across the room, doing nothing, just watching you. And then you started crying. Maybe a quiet cry, maybe the kind you weren't even expecting, and something shifted. Your cat crossed the room, slowly, deliberately, and pressed their body against yours. You probably told yourself it was a coincidence, that they wanted food or warmth or just happened to be nearby. But behavioral science tells a completely different story. What your cat just did is one of the most sophisticated expressions of social bonding that exists between two species. And most owners will never know what was actually happening in that moment. Let's start with the obvious explanation, because it sounds plausible. Your cat noticed a change in the environment, your posture shifted, your breathing changed, and they came over to investigate. Cats are curious. Curiosity explains it. But here's the problem. If it were just curiosity, cats would approach once, sniff, and leave. They'd satisfy the investigation and move on. That's what curiosity looks like in a cat. But that's not what happens. They stay. They press in. They often begin slow blinking, or kneading, or simply resting their weight against you with a kind of deliberate stillness. That's not curiosity. That's something else entirely. Researchers at the University of Lincoln published a study examining how cats respond to human emotional signals. What they found was that cats don't just detect emotion, they calibrate their behavior to match what their owner needs. Cats exposed to owners displaying distress moved closer, initiated more physical contact, and showed lower arousal levels themselves. They weren't mirroring the distress, they were doing something far more intentional, offering a regulated, calm presence to someone who was dysregulated. In other words, your cat wasn't just responding to you, they were responding for you. But here's where it gets really interesting. A 2015 study published in Animal Cognition found that cats actively read human facial expressions and alter their behavior accordingly. When presented with happy versus fearful human faces, cats spent significantly more time near humans displaying positive expressions. But when their own owner showed a fearful or distressed expression, the cat's approach behavior actually increased, not decreased. They moved toward the person who was struggling, not away. This matters because it demolishes a myth that has followed cats for decades, that they're indifferent, that they don't care about you the way a dog does. The data says otherwise. Your cat notices your face, they read it, and they make a choice. Here's a question almost nobody thinks to ask. Why would a solitary predator, an animal that for most of evolutionary history lived and hunted alone, develop the capacity to read human grief? The answer lives in the 10,000 years cats have spent alongside us. Early domestication wasn't forced. Cats chose proximity to humans for resources, and over generations, the ones who could read human emotional states survived better within that relationship. The ones who responded to human distress with approach behavior were tolerated, protected, fed. The ones who didn't, weren't. What your cat does when you cry isn't a modern quirk. It's an ancient survival adaptation that happened to produce something that looks, from the inside, exactly like compassion. Now I want to tell you about a study that nobody talks about because the result seems almost impossible. Researchers tested whether cats could distinguish the crying of their own owner from the crying of a stranger. The cats didn't increase approach behavior toward the stranger's distress at the same rate as with their owners. The response was measurably different, more muted, more hesitant. Your cat isn't responding to the sound of crying in general, they're responding to you. They have built an emotional map of your specific signals, your specific face, your specific sounds, and they have assigned those signals meaning. That's not instinct, that's relationship. There's one last thing I need to tell you, and it might be the most important part of this video. If your cat has always come to you when you're upset, and suddenly they stop, pay attention to that. A cat who withdraws from emotional contact when they previously sought it can be signaling pain, illness, or the early stages of cognitive decline. Your cat doesn't have language. Behavior is the only way they can tell you something is wrong. A cat who no longer crosses the room when you cry isn't being cold. They may be hurting. So the next time your cat presses their body against yours in a quiet moment, know what's actually happening. They read your face, they recognized your distress, and they chose, across 10,000 years of instinct, to stay. Not because they were hungry, not because of warmth, because somewhere in the long arc of our shared history, your cat learned that you are worth staying for. Science has no cleaner word for that than love.